Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have episode 3 of TikTok Made Me Read It, and this episode is going to focus on BookTok viral YA mysteries and thrillers, which was really exciting because this is a genre that I have read absolutely none of in the past, so this was totally new for me. And so I picked the top 6 books that I've been seeing around the most and read them, and now I'm going to tell you about them. This video I'm going to do in order of how I actually read them because I think that will make more sense when I explain things. So the first book I read was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and if you haven't heard of this book, it is about a girl named Avery who is 17, her mom has just died, she has moved in with her half-sister who has become like her legal guardian while she finishes high school, and they're just sort of living their normal lives. Obviously they don't have a ton of money, neither of them really have parents around, and one day this guy shows up and he's like, you need to come to my grandfather's like estate or house or mansion or whatever you want to call it, because your name is on the will and they can't read the will until all of these people are present. And so her and her sister fly out to this mansion and meet this family, obviously, and there's 4 grandsons that are around her age, and they are kind of all waiting for this will to be read and waiting to hear what they get from this grandfather who has passed away. And they find out that basically Avery, this 17-year-old girl that none of them know, has been left almost all of this guy's money and the house and everything, and none of them can figure out why or how he even knew her or even like knew of her name to like put her in the will. So the whole book is sort of the mystery of how her name ended up on the will, why the grandfather decided to leave all of this money and everything to her, and he like left all these clues sort of like around the property in different places, and the grandsons are working together with the girl to sort of figure it out. And this one I really loved. I gave this one 5 stars. I actually read the second book like as soon as it came out and loved that one too. There's a third book coming out as well. I don't know when. I don't think it's been announced yet, but I'm really excited for that one. This is a really good, I've been getting asked a lot about this one. This one's really good even if you're not into the mystery genre. Like I said, this was my first time sort of dabbling in that genre, and I loved this one. I also liked that it wasn't like a murder mystery, like it was just a mystery without having to be like, oh my god, who's the killer? Like, I don't know. I found it was very fun to read, very easy, and just one of those books that like is sort of like almost like comforting. I don't know if this would be considered a cozy mystery, probably, but it sort of reminded me of like when I turned Gilmore Girls on the TV just to sort of chill, and like I'm not really paying attention when I do that, but like I really like the show. It's just like in the background, it's very relaxing, and this book kind of reminded me of that in that like it was very comforting to read. It wasn't like I felt like I was on the edge of my seat, but like at the same time still wanted to know like what was going to happen next and whatever. And so I really like this one. Like I said, 5 stars. Definitely recommend you read this one, and the second one is also, like I said, just as good. I gave that one 5 stars as well. Next I read They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman. This one, if you haven't heard of it, is about a girl who is sort of part of this secret society within her high school. The story takes place during their senior year, but a lot of it is sort of flashing back to when they were in freshman year, where her best friend was killed during a sort of like event for this secret society, and her boyfriend confessed and said he killed her and whatever, and they found him on the beach with her and things, and so they kind of just like closed the case and were like, yeah, okay, the boyfriend did it. But now she's getting all these texts saying that he didn't do it and like maybe he's innocent, and like they have more evidence and stuff. So she's kind of going, you know, down this road of like trying to figure out like, okay, if this guy is innocent, who actually killed this girl. And I didn't love this one. I gave this one 3 stars. I guessed who the actual murderer was in this book super early on, like way earlier than I'm sure you're supposed to, and that just kind of like ruined the rest of the book for me. And I found it was very confusing with this like secret society. I only even know it's called that because it says that on the back of the book, not because it actually says that anywhere in the book, which I think is kind of ridiculous, because if you just go into the book not having read the back, you literally, like, it would take you a long time to understand what they were, because they just refer to them as the players, but they never really tell you what that means or what that is. She's just like, oh my god, I'm a player, like, player this, player that, and you're like, okay, but like, what is that, like, and I feel like it did sort of a bad job of explaining that, which was weird, since that was like a major plot point in this book, but I don't know. Like I said, didn't really vibe with this one, wasn't my favorite. I think if you're younger, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't guess who the murderer was right off the bat, and maybe you'd like it, but I just didn't vibe with this one. Next was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This one has been like super hyped and I've seen it everywhere. This was another one that I just didn't super vibe with. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I don't know. Like I just don't know. I feel like I thought this book was going to focus on something and it didn't. Like on the back of the book, I'm pretty sure, it says that this girl is going to this like fancy school, and it's basically for all of these kids that are like super good at different things. So there's like one that's like writing movies and one that's like a YouTuber, and like they're all like different things where they're like really good at sort of one thing. And her thing is that she's really into crime and like true crime and like solving things and stuff. So she goes to this school because there was a kidnapping years ago that resulted in some deaths. Basically, the guy that owned the school, this isn't a spoiler by the way, this is all like on the book, or the back of the book, but basically this guy that owned the school, his wife and his daughter were kidnapped, and he was like paying the ransom, but like they still weren't like releasing the wife and daughter. And now it's like years later, the husband, or the guy that owned the school, has died himself, and this girl is there and she's like, I'm gonna solve what happened to this, like what happened to his wife and his daughter. And there was also a girl at the school that was killed the same day, so she's like, I'm gonna solve all this, I'm gonna figure it out and whatever. And I thought that's what the book was gonna focus on. Like I thought it was gonna be her like sort of like looking for like evidence in the school and whatever, and researching things and finding out what happened all those years ago. But really it focuses more on like current events, and like I don't know, I just didn't like that. I do think I might read the second one. I read this one as like an audiobook, and I don't know if maybe that sort of ruined it for me, but I'm gonna try reading like the physical book maybe of the second one if I ever attempt that. But like I said, just didn't vibe with this one, but I do think if you're younger you might like this one too. Next, I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, and I loved this book. If you liked Pretty Little Liars, especially like the early season, you would love this book. Like it is right up that same alley. It is so good. This is about a girl who disappears. She dies, or like they assume she dies because she has just gone and never come back and no one's ever seen her, heard from her, whatever. And her boyfriend, again, is blamed for the murder because he is found dead a couple days later because he killed himself. And so everyone's like, okay, he must have been like super guilty, he killed himself because he was guilty about her murder, and that's what happened basically. And the whole town like believes this and whatever. And this girl, for her capstone project in high school, is like, no, I'm gonna figure out what actually happened here because that just seems sketchy to me. Like she knew the boyfriend, and so she was like, I don't think he would have killed her, and he definitely wouldn't have killed himself, and like she's like, the whole thing just doesn't add up. So she is researching this for her like final capstone project of her senior year, and she ends up meeting the boyfriend's brother, and he is sort of helping her with all this because he wanted to do it himself, but he's like, no one wants me around because they'll just think I'm the murderer's brother, and so they don't want to answer my questions and things, but maybe you'll have better luck. So the two of them are kind of working together to figure out what actually happened. And this one, I will say, like I did not know how this one was going to end because, again, like Pretty Little Liars, it definitely leads you in a lot of different directions before you get to like the real story. And I know there are 3 books in this series, but I will say this first one didn't end on a cliffhanger, so I kind of liked that because I kind of hate reading mysteries, I've discovered, where like you don't even find out the actual like answer at the end of the book. But this one wasn't like that. Even though there's 3 books in the series, it's definitely like you could read this as a standalone, and really liked that aspect of it as well. And like I said, if you liked Pretty Little Liars, it's very similar to the sort of first, I would say 2 or maybe 3 seasons of Pretty Little Liars, when Allie's missing and they're like trying to figure out what happened and talking to everyone, and everyone's pointing fingers in different directions and things like that. And even in Pretty Little Liars, they have like sending them like anonymous notes. There's sort of like the similar vibe going on in this book where she's getting like threatening letters of people telling her to drop the investigation and stuff. And it's just really, really good. I really liked this one. Like I said, obviously gave it 5 stars. Next, I read One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. And this one I was kind of sad about because this one's so hyped and I was hoping to love it. And I did love it. but I knew who the killer was again at the beginning. And that's just, like, I hate knowing that. But I will say, I've thought about this a lot. Like, a lot. And I will say, I think I'm glad that I knew who the killer was. Because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, okay, would I have rather it be, like, very obvious to me who the killer was? But I don't think it's very obvious to everyone. Like, I do think there will be people that read this book and don't figure it out. But I was like, would I rather it be obvious to me, or would I have rather the author sort of made it like some random side character that you never hear about or whatever, like, and just be like, oh yeah, it was them, like, haha, you never would have guessed that because I only introduced the character 5 minutes ago. And I was like, okay, like, if those are my options, basically. It's either gotta be someone that's obvious in the story or someone who literally isn't in the story, then, like, I'm glad I knew who it was, I guess. And this one, I will say, this was different for me from They Wish They Were Us, because this one I think was still very enjoyable to read, even though I sort of had a feeling about the ending. And this one I gave 4 stars because, like I said, I still enjoyed it. I still thought the book was really good. It had a lot to offer outside of just the mystery as well. There's like a little bit of romance. There's like a little bit of just like their friend dynamic going on. And basically, if you haven't heard of this book, I probably should have started with this. It's about 5 kids that are in detention, and one of them dies during detention, and he was running this website that was sort of like a gossip site where he posted all this information about other students at the school, and they find out after he dies that he had this like entry or post logged into his account that he was going to post the next day about all 4 of the other kids in detention with him. So they sort of think, okay, all 4 of these kids have a motive now to kill him, to stop this post from going up. But they also sort of have like this problem where like the whole school's kind of been posted about on this thing, so basically everyone hated this guy. And they're like, okay, like how, you know, how do we figure out who did this? And so they're basically mostly questioning the main 4 because they were there with him, obviously. But this one, like I said, I guessed it from the beginning, but it was still like very enjoyable to read. It's kind of like Breakfast Club vibes, like the movie, but also kind of like Gossip Girl if I had to compare it to something. Like I said, really like this one, gave it 4 stars. Wish I hadn't known the ending, but if my choices were that or it being stupid, I'm glad I knew. So do with that what you will. And the last book I read was We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, and I gave this one 3 stars. I feel like people are really going to hate me for that because this book is so popular. If you don't know about this book, I don't know if there's much I can really say about it without ruining it. It's about this like family of rich people that live on this island in the summer, and this girl sort of leaves one summer and doesn't really remember anything. Like, she remembers going into the water and hitting her head, and other than that, like, she just doesn't remember that summer, like what happened before that. And she doesn't go back for a year, and finally it's the 2nd year she comes back, and she's kind of like mad at all of her cousins and her boyfriend that she was like with because they weren't responding to her and they've been ignoring her and all this stuff, and she can tell they're lying to her like on this island this summer, but she can't figure out why, and she can't figure out why no one will tell her what she can't remember. And it's like all very just like secretive, and you're like, okay, what aren't they telling her and everything. But I feel like the plot twist in this was so hyped, like so ridiculously hyped, that I was expecting something so insanely crazy that when the plot twist was actually revealed, I was like, really? That was it? Like, that's what everyone's been hyping up? Because, like I said, it's been hyped up so much. So I think that was part of the reason that this book just, like, I didn't vibe with it, because everyone just said, like, the plot twist was so crazy, and I was like, didn't find it was that crazy. And so I don't know. I think if you went into this expecting the plot twist to be like mediocre, you might like it, because then you'd be like, okay, yes, that makes sense. But don't go into this expecting the plot twist to be like something that's gonna blow you out of the water, because it literally won't. And so yeah, like I said, people are probably gonna hate me for this because like everybody loves this book and hypes it up so much, but it just wasn't my favorite thing. And so those are all the books I read for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I will see you next time.